Here we go. All right. It's the first time doing this, so this will be interesting in the sense of using this as an avenue. So let's just introduce everybody to start off with. Look, I'm Chris Brown, head coach of the USA Women's Sevens team. Been around for a little while now through the USA Rugby circles, and absolutely loving it here. But we've also got two lovely young ladies joining me, which, introduce yourself, team.
Hi, my name's Ilona. I've been on the team now with Brownie. I was with Brownie from the start. Elena and I have both been with Brownie since the start, so about a year and a half. And then Elena and I were there for the past coach as well for a little bit.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Elena. Just one of the players with Low. Been around for about a year and a half to 2 years as well.
Lo, can you explain the backdrop you got going on there? I mean, it's quite really?
My mom likes these colorful plates that she finds, so I don't know, add a little spice to the video, you know?
definitely a European Dutch background there.
Yeah.
All right, so look, I'm just going to share the screen and we'll just jump into this. Look, ultimately, can everybody see now? That look good? You guys can see. Happy days. Let's hope so. Look, we just wanted to open up our environment a little bit and share a bit more with the community and really share what I suppose has been the underpinning of what we do, our foundation, and how cohesion or team unity, team building, women getting on the same page obviously has such a big impact when you're talking about 7 players out there on the pitch trying to do things. Or trying to work together, trying to go in the same direction. So we just wanted to share a bit of insight. And so I'm going to start off with, I guess it's a little bit different to being interactive, but first things first, what's the most valuable asset we have in the game of sevens? And ultimately this relates to any team sport. And you'll probably get where I'm going with this because of the title of the webinar. But it's the people, it's each other. And we've got to work out how to get the best out of each and every individual if we're going to maximize the power that we create ultimately towards the goals and the aspirations that we have. One of the things that were prioritized in the sense of our development, we didn't want to allow things just to happen by chance when it came to the cohesion factor in our team unity. But using USA Rugby or the Women's Sevens, as a case study in many ways, because obviously that's fresh to us, that's new to us, in the sense current to us. We're going to talk through some of our journey and where we started and how we progressed through and how that led ultimately to us being in the best possible position to kick on and really maximise where we wanted to go and what we wanted to represent and start trying to build a form of legacy that we could be really, really proud of. So as I love this quote from J.K. Rowling, we're only as strong as we are united, as weak as we are divided. We're not a team because we work together. We are a team because we respect, trust, care, and care for each other. Is another one. And it really does become that. It's we've spent so much time talking about, and you'll hear this in the public about the group that we have, that there is a lot of X factor, there is a lot of power. Every individual that's in our group has a lot of strong individual qualities that adds value and complement the rest of the group. But the fact is, ultimately, that's only going to take us so far, and really the power is going to be pretty limited unless there is a respect and a love for each other that means that we're going to fight for each other. So let's just jump into this a little bit further. These are the 3 areas that we're going to really look at today: people, the vision and the values, the underpinning of what holds us together, what we gauge ourselves off with regards to how we're going, and what pushes us towards that ultimate vision and goal, and then finishing off with that part. So People are complex. People are interesting. There's so much quality to bring out of individuals, so much characteristics that I think in many ways we at times, especially when you come into a team environment, and for myself, and trying to recognize what those characteristics that you're really hoping to have to maximize the group is key. So, the first thing we had to do before we got into anything regarding the vision or what do we ultimately want to achieve, who do we want to inspire, it was always about, okay, for us to maximize and where we wanted to go and what we wanted to achieve, we had to be pretty certain that we had the right type of people to go and actually achieve this. And so some of these characteristics that we were looking for, driven, determined, if somebody's not passionate about what they are about to take on, that are they really going to stick at it when we get into the deep, dark places and things are difficult? When we look at mindsets, are we going to be a group of individuals that get caught up in the things that we can't control and complaining about this and this and ultimately leading to a bit of a blame culture? Or are we going to be more self-reliant and really focused on what we can control? I'm just going to start throwing up a few of these, and then the main ones will, a few of the ones that we'll start to talk about. But optimism, again, it comes back like in the sense of controlling the controllables and our mindset towards the opportunities that we have. If our group of athletes don't have that optimistic mindset, it can be very, very difficult, we play a game where we have to find heaps of solutions. We're currently, we're always in environments where we're having to adapt and change, and things don't always go, or very rarely do they go exactly how we planned. But having that mindset of the excitement and believing something good, a good opportunity is just around the corner, or, if we get through this is going to be good for us. It's key when we look at developing a team. Self-aware accountability. When we jump into the cohesion stuff at the end, we'll share, Lo and Elena will definitely share a lot more around one of the tools that we utilize there to help enhance that self-care awareness. That they're willing to go above and beyond and go put themselves to the side. One of the a TED talk that I would recommend everybody watching is one around, it's around giving. It's about the workplace environment. It's by a guy called Adam Grant, and it talks about takers, givers, and matchers, kind of characterizing three sets of people. And what's quite interesting is, Elena, I'm going to ask you this question, so it's a bit more interactive. In a workplace, if you think about a giver in the sense of somebody that just will give their time, will go out of their way to help, will ultimately will put their task aside, will put their desires to the side. Compare that with a taker who's ultimately, and sometimes it's hard to recognize a taker because they can cover themselves up and try and come across like they're more of a giver. But ultimately, their reason for doing anything is all about how they can get ahead, how they can utilize people as ultimately as objects or as assets to achieve their goals and their purposes. And then you've got the matchers who ultimately give and take. If somebody gives, they always feel obliged to do the same thing. When you think about productivity and performance, out of the three, which one do you reckon would be the most unproductive in the sense of getting their own jobs done, their own tasks done?
It was productivity, performance, and which other?
Well, just product, like literally getting their job done, being efficient, performing really well at their job. Mm-hmm. Out of the givers, the takers, and the matchers, which one do you think would be probably the least likely to fulfill or to be to perform as they need to in their role?
I mean, we play a team sport, I think, but and on any team sport, you're going to have so many different personalities. You're going to have givers, you're going to have takers. But I do think that takers type can be definitely tough to work with. We're in a sport and in an environment where you have to give your all, you have to take the backlash. So I'd say the takers
would be the worst.
Yeah.
Elena? Remember, and it's about them fulfilling their role, completing their task, and their
okay.
job.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I was gonna say, is that like we all have a role, and we know the people that we are, and relative to them, if we are the giver or the taker, like in whatever relationship you have with your teammates. So like it's just something you have to manage. It's not like one is better than the other, but like that you just have to know who you're working with and how to work with them in that time.
So I put them both on the spot here. I haven't shared this with them at all, and I'm sure I'm sure when we come back in and we talk about this a little bit more when we start back up in August, it'll be quite interesting. So look, yeah, very valid points what they've shared, and I guess in the sense if you look at there's times where you'll find yourself slipping into each category, but in the sense of the studies and the research has shown that in an environment setting, the people that actually get their job done the least effective is the givers, because they spend so much time trying to help others and fulfilling roles and taking things on that are outside of their spectrum or outside of their job description, that they end up not getting through what they need to do and being most effective in the environment. So if I ask you the same question, ladies, in the sense of about those getting their jobs done, fulfilling their role, maximizing their performance to the group, what personality do you think, or what trait out of the givers, takers, and matchers do you think would have the most success? Hello, you're on mute.
I'm gonna say takers.
Cool. Elena?
Okay, so you're asking
Maybe
like
Matt.
what is most productive for the team?
No, I'm just asking about
versus what is most productive for yourself.
Yeah. So in the sense of if I'm a CEO of a finance company, and I ultimately want to make sure that the people that are working for me are making as much money as possible. All right. You're talking about people. So here's your job. You've got these 5 things to do, and you've got these 5 things to do. So then the giver, etc., he tries to do his 5 things, or she tries to do his 5 things, but she's also out there willing to help and assist and help others do their 5 things. Where the taker is more so, I'll do my 5 things and I'll work out how I can get other people to help me do my 5 things. Where the matcher will be, I'll do my 5 things. If somebody helps me, or if I, then I'll help them, etc. But it's always a give and take relationship. Which one do you think gets, from a performance standpoint, gets their job done the most efficiently, or to the best level?
Wouldn't the taker get their job done most efficiently? I guess depending on what their job is, if it was just to finish their task, they got it done. And
this is the cool thing, because sitting here, hopefully the way that you're listening to this and you're understanding this, that there's 3 in this massive study of I think it's 20 or 30,000 people across different workplaces that they studied. And again, I encourage you to go have a look at that Edwin Grant TED Talk. What they recognised was the worst people, in the sense of actually being productive and getting their jobs done, in the sense that in their job description, is the givers. But on the flip side, the people who are the best at getting their jobs done, in the sense of and perform at the highest levels, is also the givers. And the challenge is for an environment is a giver works really, really well with a matcher, because they feel there's give and take. Givers work really, really well with each other, and they help each other, and they as a unit, they get more done. etc. So they multiply each other. But you put a taker in there, somebody that is about themselves, somebody that is ultimately they'll do anything it is to make sure that they are progressing, they are getting better. That doesn't help the giver. That actually disillusionizes. It's disillusional. No, that's the wrong word. Sorry. Obviously, English is my second language. Just clarifying that. It really doesn't make the giver want to work hard. They just can't be bothered in the end. They don't want to work with that person, so they get disillusioned. So trying to recognize, rather than I need the right people, I need to go get this person. It's more so about, in many ways, recognizing who are those takers in your group, and can you transform them into the mindset of at least becoming more matchers, because we know the matchers and the givers work well together. But the more givers you have, the greater the multiplication factor is going to occur, and the more powerful you're going to be. And so that's definitely that's definitely a direction that we went with, in the sense of we looked at characters that we felt had the potential, already had certain characteristics that I've shared here that fall into those those two categories, but also who are moldable and really keen to grow and develop and set ourselves up to ultimately help each other achieve the ultimate vision and maximize what we achieve as a unit. One of my favourite speakers or motivational speakers is a lady called Christine Kane from Australia, and when we look at, again, and from a taker's standpoint, when you look at a group of people and you say, okay, ultimately we've got a goal to achieve. Now, often in the corporate world, or if we only had 12 players in our squad and everybody knew that they were going on tour, they're going to go represent their country at every event or opportunity that we got, then you'd probably find that, all right, what's your role, what's your task? There's going to be less headaches when it comes to truly seeing the strengths as complements and seeing the abilities of others as an asset to the team, and you really wanting to see them flourish in those assets. In most sporting situations, it's team sport situations, there's competition within, and that's a really, really good thing to push the level of performance and the standard of execution to the next level. But it's a very fine line between what's it called, doing that but still being in that mindset of, it's like, okay, how can we're really trying to set this team up to succeed. And we need to get the best out of each other, so we need to help each other rather than hold back and just worry about myself. And I think that we've really tried to dive into this as we've developed our culture over the last 2 seasons. But Lo and Elena, I'd love for you to share a little bit more around this, because I can only imagine it is challenging. And in a team environment where you all have the aspiration to be out there, away from the closed doors, etc., where we all fight hard, we all die and sacrifice a lot to the cause. How do you find this? What have you experienced so far? If you just want to jump in and share.
So one thing is that we are in such a tough, interesting environment where we have to find that balance between being competitors and being teammates. And we do stress being a family and really being connected and working together and loving each other. But then there is a time where, it's tough. You go out there every day trying to find a spot, and someone else is working just as hard as you, if not harder, who wants a spot as well. So I guess one thing that keeps me going and doesn't make me think of really my teammates as a threat and more as my family, as my teammates, is knowing by them working so hard, it's going to make me better. So when I see in the gym, I see Chetta putting on more weights. Well, I'm like, well, I want to put on more weights because I want to be just like her. I want to be just as good. So by everyone kind of constantly raising the bar and constantly bringing that competitiveness, it just brings everybody up. But it is an interesting environment we work in.
What I love about what you just shared there, Lara, is it's ultimately it's a mindset where it's like, okay, how can I get better? How can I, focusing on what you can control, as one of those key characteristics that I threw up in one of the first slides, is ultimately massive, because that means that we're going to be focusing on the things that we can enhance and where we can immediately see change or effect or enhancement. And that, like she said, at the end of the day, we'll all get better if we all buy into that same mindset. And it's not easy, and we have to fight it at times, and we have to recognize the thought and then make decisions on which way we go. But if we're in that mindset the majority of the time, then the unit's getting stronger, and that's so valuable for the individual. Elena?
Well, Lo touched on it a little bit, but like the connection part. So like we've already mentioned, like one of our jobs is to be like the best player that we can be personally, but also like how can we be the best teammate, and how can we like help our team be better. And like a lot of that comes down to like having a connection with your teammates. It's really easy day to day to like get stuck in, like for me, I get stuck in my head, and I'm like, these are the things I need to do. These are the things I need to accomplish for me to have a successful day. But then like, I also need to make sure that I have like specific action items to connect with my teammates. Like, even if it's just like telling somebody what I want out of the day, or going to somebody and asking them, how can I help you? Like, what do you want to get out today, and how can I help you do that? Or if it's like, hey, can I just tackle you for a second? And if it's like physical connection or communicative connection, just like having those items so that you're always like doing things with your teammates and not just, on yourself.
Sorry, Lo, you're going to say?
Just one thing that you said was buy-in. And I think that's a big part about it too. Almost one of the first steps is a buy-in of a team. And by bringing in these people who are prepared to trust in what our coaches are doing and are prepared to change up the culture as it needs to be, and buying in that there needs to be change and we're not perfect yet. And that goes, I think, just one of the first steps.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. Ultimately, we just spent 25 minutes talking about people and characteristics that we look for, and why it's so vital, and what Lowe's just summed it up brilliantly there, is we have to be bought in and all going in the same direction. And so it's not easy, and along the way you'll recognize that some decisions have to be made, but it's vital that we keep the group unified, and the what's it called, the people aligned with the vision and aspirations of the team. And so that's where we're ultimately going to head to now, is really looking at which direction did we want to take. And when I took over this group in 2018, I knew there was a lot of quality individuals already within the environment, whether that was staff or players. One of the big things that I think came out of the surveys that we received from the players there was a huge internal desire to achieve more than they had previously, and they could see the possibilities of what was possible. They just didn't necessarily know how to get there, nor how to refine it, and really make sure that the direction is clear, and we're all on the same page, going in the same direction. And so the next thing was, once we felt like that we kind of identified the core group of people that we wanted to work with, was to define the vision. And I mean, ladies, how much time did we take here? I mean, Brig, yeah.
Like a year, and a whole year, to maybe a year and a half, just continuously picking out like what we want.
Yeah, and we had a YouTube question too that said, are your values team vision set by the players or the coaching staff, or is it shared model? It was just all of us coming together for like weekly meetings for, I think it was a half of a year or a year of really kind of defining what we want to build. And it started really large, and there's so many words thrown around, so many phrases, and then we just kind of shortened it. But it was all the staff, all the players, and even the interns came in. So.
And I mean, great question. And as Elena and Ilona have highlighted is it's an ongoing process. We're still, and when we come back together in July, August time, we'll be diving back in and revisiting the vision, the mission, and the values of the unit, and whether they are the most appropriate to get the best outcome for where we're going into this next chapter of this journey. So it's ever evolving, but as per what Lo's just highlighted around the question, what we did initially was we spent about 2 months in a room, twice a week for at least a couple of hours every week for about 2 months. And we refined. We got everything out on the table that the group wanted to stand for, staff, players, etc. Probably 80% of what they wanted to stand for, and came out of the players' mouths, which was brilliant. And we just cultivated and guided and directed that. And ultimately, Emily Bidewell, our director of rugby, our high performance director, she helped unify all that, so that come that first tournament when we had to go to Glendale, we had a pretty clear vision. Well, we knew what our mission was for the first tournament, but we had a clear vision for the season, and what that would do ultimately to the people that would support us and watch us. And where we've came to is this is our current vision that we had for this team, and the ultimate purpose of why we do what we do. And if you don't have, for us, I know there's different sporting environments. I know there's some teams where you literally come in. Let's take USA Basketball. You take New Zealand Rugby League. They literally come together for whether it's 3 weeks at a time or a 6-week period at a time, and that may be. And there's often quite a bit of chopping and changing. So the amount of involvement of every player may be a little bit less, in the sense of how the role that they play in developing the vision and the direction of the group. However, for us, the model that we work through, Emily and myself, is any person that is critical to the success of the team and the ultimate mission that we have needs to be a part of building it. Because if they're a part of it, it's going to lead to a significant enhancement in the likelihood of the buy-in and the trust of why it's important. And then as we build that process out of how we're going to achieve it, it's only going to reduce the likelihood of fragments happening and ultimately fractures in our environment. So, as Lo said, we did spend a lot of time together, and we continue to. Which is cool. A lot of frustrating conversations at times too. So jump over to here, and literally alongside this, once we had it went alongside as we build out the vision that we had for the team, and the individual missions that we had for each tournament and for the season per se. It was like, what lens are we going to look through? What's going to be our moral compass in many ways to make sure that we are able to check if we're progressing in the right way, and that the environment's kept healthy so that it's safe and it fosters growth. And we refer to this as our foundation. So you guys can share a little bit more when it comes to how we come up with this, and you don't need to go through necessarily and explain each. It's there for them to read, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that kind of first 2-month process. And yes, it's been refined in the second year, but a lot of it's still the values haven't shifted much or at all really since we started back in August 2018.
So these are our values, which we decided upon ourselves, just like the vision. We did it together, and it's kind of just like who we want to be and how we want to act. And the values are just kind of the things that we go to every day, and we're like, are we doing these things? Are we being this? Are we representing the values that we have chosen for ourselves? And like, if we're not, it allows us to be aware of the places that we're lacking and kind of go in that direction, find actions to do those things. and it is something that we have to look to every day, or we think about every day, and it's something that we practice right alongside like any of our field skills. Whether it's being vulnerable, because that's something that is really hard, I think, in our environment, or if it's holding each other accountable. These are things that we talk about on a daily basis, on a practice, like even multiple times during the day.
Yeah, and another question we got was, how do you hold each other accountable when it comes to values, and how do you, walk the walk, talk the talk? We do weekly meetings, and I think some people might just create a values, put it on a poster board, and then, oh, here's our values, guys, remember them, do them. But I mean, we constantly say the word brave when we're in practice. We have meetings on Wednesdays where it's our off days, but we come together to meet and to talk and to see what's going on in the group. It's not that, but, and then I think what's been nice is like those values. Sometimes maybe you think on the field it's just rugby focused, but bringing the values onto the field, something like our coaches, Brownie, will constantly be saying, are we being brave on the field? And then it makes you stop and think, am I upholding the values as I'm playing rugby?
Cheers, ladies. That's awesome. Ultimately, this is the way that we want to, aspire to, and as I said, the moral compass, and I think they summed it up lovely. And ultimately, this is how we're meant to live, and in the environment, how we're meant to function. And it's just I think year one was a lot about exploring really what does this actually look like, and holding each other accountable, and being it takes vulnerability both sides, from those who actually have to deliver a message at times, but also awareness on how to recognize who you're speaking to, and how they're going to best receive it. Now, at times on the pitch when we're performing, there's often not that opportunity, and it might come across in a way that's not necessarily well received. But also the receiver's got a responsibility in recognizing that if we're saying that we're all bought in, we've got the same vision, we've built the relationship, spent the time getting closer and connected with each other, that everybody's got the best intentions for the group to be successful, and what they're delivering, what they're saying now is their intentions are not bad. As I say, it's as much about it's how it's the person that's going to receive it has to recognize, or it's more successful when the receiver recognizes how uncomfortable it is at times for the deliverer to have that challenging conversation. And holding each other accountable, I think one of the big things that we did in January was we came together again, and we recognized that we weren't happy with our performance execution or our consistency of execution, the accuracy component, and that came down. And when we talk about performance execution, we're not talking about just line out and phase play attack. We're talking about, are we on time? Have we prepared effectively? Have we done the recovery behind closed doors to set ourselves up for this and that? But it just goes across. It's how we live. And what the group actually did after the management was together initially, they said, okay, next week's just us, and we're putting a line in the sand of what this looks like, and some of the non-negotiables. And a lot of people don't like rules, because rules often refer to I can't do this, I can't do that. But ultimately, if you've got a loving environment where you really care about each other and you care about the vision of the team, and then the rule, and you recognise that the rules are only there for the safety of the group and to keep that group and the environment healthy, then we've got somewhere to start from. And I think that was a really key thing for us that we did in January this year, 18 months in, is that we put a line in the sand across all areas of play. And again, we're still learning, we're still growing, and we're still progressing there. But our accountability is definitely improving. So ultimately, I think the big thing for us is if we look at this next one, we're trying to get trust and buy-in, or ultimately get buy-in to the direction. And for us, the cohesion starts by bringing in everybody to build that vision, to build those values that we live by and aspire to achieve, as Elena said. And if you get that right, then you end up with some pretty special moments along the way, which for us as a unit, we hadn't had any of these. Yes, I hadn't been a part of it pre 2018, but there was a number that's been a part of this program since it went to the World Series, and almost a decade ago now, and so there've been a lot of people that had given a lot, and a lot of coaches, management, players along the way that had added a lot of value along the way to this group and where we've come to. But a big thing again for us was to how can we unify it to make it as powerful as possible, to give ourselves a chance to actually have a bit more, I suppose, memories aligned to outcomes as well, like winning championships, etc., than maybe they'd had before. So hopefully that's given a decent amount of insight into our how we went about the initial process of giving ourselves a chance to be unified and going out to achieve some specific goals, and hopefully inspiring a few along the way. Lo, is there any more questions around those two topics? Before we jump into the a bit more of what we actually did from a cohesion standpoint, activities, tools that we used. You're on mute.
Yeah. One thing we had was, how do you go about encouraging someone to step outside of their comfort zone and to do a little bit more than they think they can? How do we encourage them to, I guess, buy into this cohesion and team culture?
Yeah, I mean, let me answer that one from my perspective anyway. Is as much as it's vital that we get the individuals that we see that are growth minded and have those characteristics that we're looking for that can really catapult us forward, get them in a room and be a part of building that vision and the values that we live by. It's key that we help the individual understand what they're driven by and what's important to them. And if we do that, and we're going to dive into it a lot deeper in this next season, since we're pretty happy with how solid our foundation is right now, but we feel that we can really take it to the next level by investing more and helping each individual understand what they're driven by, what's the legacy that they want to leave behind, and what's like why, and then how the team and the environment complements and aligns with that, and how them understanding that and being at their best is going to make sure that they keep fighting and keep progressing when things get tough. But how they're contributing to the team will be massive, and that gives us again another kind of compass to help encourage and motivate, and also keep accountable when we need to, when we understand each other to that depth. Elena, Lowe, anything there? Cool. So look, hopefully now we've set ourselves up. That was the plan, to be able to jump into use a few resources and create a few scenarios where we can really build that unity and get to know each other better. And so when we looked at it over here, again, as I highlighted at the start, just like from a rugby skills standpoint, or our attacking frameworks, or now mental skills and mindfulness is becoming such a huge. The acknowledgement of how huge it is becoming bigger and bigger, and it's so many of the teams that we play against is that the attributes that the teams have physically and skill sets are very similar, but from a psychological standpoint, how they capture their thoughts, how they are able to recognise when thoughts are coming that are potentially distracting, brings them back to where they need to be. So that they can do the task at hand. It's been a huge thing, and so we prioritise it a lot. But obviously this call or webinar is about cohesion, and just like that mental skills side of things, just like the rugby detail and analysing opposition, analysing, enhancing ourselves, we've really prioritised and planned on how we can become tighter as a unit. And some of the ways that we've done this, which Lo and Elena are going to jump into, through a few different resources. So I'll just throw one up at a time, and then one of you, or whoever's comfortable or keen, can kind of explain what that means, how that came about.
The no complaining rule. This one was a book that we all read. Great homework assignment for all of us. And it's just kind of about your attitude and about how contagious your attitude can be, and like how unaware you can also be of the effect that you have on others, and how the words that you say, or the way that you react to situations can change like the whole demeanor of a group, and like the way that you enter a training session, or anything that we enter a game or whatever we're going into.
I think and sometimes when you see this and new players coming in, because of course we have new players coming in every year, it's a new chapter from the start of every season, and so some of the stuff they weren't a part of building, of course, but that's where the majority and the foundation group that were there at the start, if they've bought into these characteristics or these aspects, it'll just naturally start to occur. And it's not that you can't complain, it's more about your mindset towards it, and do you have a solution, and are you approaching the people that can influence it? One of the big things that we recognised that we had to remove, and this is as a group, was side conversations that weren't beneficial to the direction of the group. And as Elena said, we've become a lot more aware. I found myself having conversations with people, and I'm like, hold up, this is not benefiting the team. This is not healthy for the team. Although many people may not even most people won't even find out, this is not beneficial. And so, and I'm not talking to the right person. If there's an issue, then really I should be looking for the solution. And if I've got the solution, then I need to be talking to the person that's can, make a change or make the difference. And of course, for a lot of the players approaching, say myself or Emily or Matt Long or one of our other staff, etc., sometimes can be intimidating. And again, it comes back to creating an environment where and we go into this and share a little bit more around creating a safe environment, an environment where we're living through our values, where we're willing to be vulnerable, but we've also created a connection where players have seen the compassion and the care for each other, but also from the management towards them and from the players towards the management. So that was one of the real big things that I was adamant that we need to implement from the start. And I think we've really come to a great spot there. And just means by putting something like that in place, it also makes it easier to hold the group accountable where needed, and to also encourage the group to, if somebody is talking to you like, hey, I'll hear you out, but you really need to go talk to Brownie, or you really need to go talk to Elena if you've got an issue with her right now, and it just increases the chance for us to keep the healthy environment.
And on that, the book is, one question was, the book's called The No Complaining Rule by John Gordon. Yeah. Okay.
So take the book and take it to a coffee shop with your team, read a chapter and discuss it, because this is something we do a lot of too. We spend a lot of time together here. Women, they've come to, as I think, as Abby, one of our captains, shared, it's like there's no friends outside of this team anymore, So, and forgive me, Abby, if it wasn't you who said that. It's like the people that you want to spend the time with and you prioritise the time with. It's the ones that you go to battle and they fight with all week and you get sick of. But one day into the weekend, it's like they're the same people that you're looking to go spend time with, and which is pretty cool that we've come to that spot at the moment. The consistent checkpoints throughout the season that we just don't allow things to go under the rug, as Low highlighted before. We have often it's weekly meetings, or at least you'll see 4 or 5 meetings over the space of a couple of months, and within every 2 to 3 months we'll always especially if there's been a little bit of tension in the group or a few little things going on. It's a kind of a checkpoint, and we'll just go through a process of exploring what's been happening, why, and how can we reduce that chance of that happening again. So again, we prioritise that. And then Lo, we'll put you in the spot. You can jump into this one because it's a resource that I love, and I think it's been really, really valuable for us.
So I've worked with the DISC profile for a while now. I did it in college at Quinnipiac, but so what it is, I think it's so important because everyone has a different personality. Everyone has a different style that works well for them, for learning, for being coached, for being a leader. So the DISC profile, we all took a little survey, a test, and then it kind of told you what your profile was. So D is dominant, I is influence, S is
Steady.
C is calm. Wait, no. Which one's C?
And there's different words. I mean, there's 2 or 3 different words for each letter, meaning the same thing. But sorry, Lo, yeah.
But so we took all these tests. I'm an I, which means so I'm an influencer. It's a whole thing. But we got together in a room and we all learned about each other. We learned about what our DISC profiles were, and we learned what's the way to talk to this person. How do you talk to a D? So a D is going to be more forward with you. A dominant person is going to be more forward. Going to tell you how it is. They might not have the most caution for people's feelings, whereas someone like an I really cares about what people think about them. So that balance between the D talking to the I and knowing how they should be talked to and how they're going to be most receptive. So it was a good time to really learn about your teammates because we already kind of knew. We were like, oh, she's going to be an I, she's going to be an S. But it was just good to see and really learn about each other.
Lan, you want to add anything? Oh, cool. And the self-awareness, because as Lo said, shared, we already knew a lot about ourselves and about our teammates, and being able to kind of explain it and have kind of like, oh yeah, that is how I tend to be, and blah blah blah, allowed us to have those more intimate, vulnerable conversations to make sure that day to day that we were being most effective and able to be supporting each other, encouraging, keeping each other accountable as best as possible. Now everyone has all 4 personality traits, but we just, in different situations, we also find that from a normal environment where there's less stress per se, you may be high in one area, but then under pressure you become higher in another area. So seeing that change in personality can be quite off-putting at times, and working with people, but being aware of it, understanding it. Peter Harbour, our sports psychologist, talks a lot about awareness, and if you're aware, then you can make choices. And so again, this is just another tool to increase the choices that we have, or our awareness, to make sure that we have the best chance of being successful in the choices that we make. And there's obviously a lot more things that we do around that, but it gives us the best chance of trying to develop the individual as well, and their self-awareness and what drives them. Probably one of my favourites as well. Lo?
So this stands for House of Pain. Brownie loves this just because he's the one leading it. But so a House of Pain is a time on a practice where we're going to be put through our paces. It's going to be a really hard practice. We're going to be grafting out there. We're going to be tired. We might cry. We might fall on the floor in tiredness. But it is interesting. Before it, you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this. I really don't. During it, it sucks. But then afterwards, there's this feeling of, wow, we just completed that together. And we just all came together and went through that terrible time. But I have to say the hugs that come afterwards, the feeling of accomplishment and just that feeling of cohesion just through the House of Pain really brings us together.
Yeah, and it's just us. Like, it's just us out there. There's not like a ball. There's not another team. Because we're always working for each other. But there's something about like all of us in this like one small area, like on the brink of tears, that makes you really love each other. Like this is probably the best one of all of them, that makes you feel like, hey, because when you're in it, you're like looking at each other and you're like, oh, she's working hard. I got to work hard for her. I got to do this for her. And those are the best moments.
So I mean, look, and that, you know, we've spoken about these other aspects that naturally come up, just that willingness to have those conversations and enhancing our awareness of personalities and each other and ourselves makes us more successful, and doing that in a healthy manner. And then transparency has been a big one, and this is where I've fallen short at times, where I felt like I've been transparent with what's needed to know rather than sharing too much information. And not for the sake that I want to hold things back, more so that I just I don't want to distract them with unnecessary information, but just recognizing from a planning standpoint that some stuff, if you to just be really critical on yourself and before you share, before you share, but really asking yourself the question is, if you think it's a nice to know, maybe find out from a couple of other people, is this a nice to know, or is this actually, you know, this could be quite valuable for them to know as well, just to ensure that, you know, we're in the best spot to maximize that trust and that buy-in. So ultimately, look, hopefully that's been insightful. I've got a 2-minute clip to show you to finish off with, which is ultimately what we've learned along the way. But we planned, we committed, we got to know ourselves, we got to know each other, had the opportunities, and we've had to take ownership individually at times and as a collective. We've had the fights, and we'll continue to have the fights as we move forward. But again, the whole thing about the cohesion and the environment set up is to make sure that that's a natural part of the family, that fights happen. But hopefully we've developed the tools to do it in a healthy way, in a productive way, and that's only going to make sure that we're fine-tuning and sharpening the axe, etc., or the sword, and moving forward. And again, we've made those tough choices to choose not to complain in corners to people that can't. And again, you know, all these things, you know, we're people. We get things wrong at times, but a lot of it's being vulnerable and taking ownership and responsibility for our actions. And the better the environment set up and the tools that we provide our athletes and ourselves as part of that environment and develop those tools, the more likely we're going to make a lot more good decisions and have less things to have to take ownership for and responsibility for. So what I wanted to show you was ultimately what did we learn so far in this process, and I'm really speaking on behalf of the management, but I think this will come to life because it's come out of our mid-year review heavily, and it has the whole way through the 2 years that we've worked together, but especially this last review, this is one of the big things we've learned, and I really hope that you can hear this, what's said here.
Trust or you don't have trust. So in the team where I made some mistakes on the top where I carried more distance on the jumps than I thought I would, so I went 5-6 meters off the line a couple of places. Gave him all that inside, and in the race, he actually, I think he took 4 or 5 tenths on me on that top section where I had made my mistakes. And he did it perfectly, not just because of my... And when you were looking at the screen, were you like, yay? Or were you like, ah? But the thing is, that's the whole thing. It only works if you always do it. So, you know, what comes around goes around. So I did it for him in the Olympics. We ended up 1-2 gold and silver. He did it for me in the World Champs, and we ended up 1-2 gold and silver. So it works, but you have to do it every single time, because if I had just given him different grading of the information than what was the real truth, then he would have found out and then he wouldn't have trusted me the next time.
Exactly.
So then when he's going to give me information this winter, will he actually give me the whole truth, or will he, now it's payback time? So it only works if it works 100%.
Yeah, I hope you could hear that. Ultimately, it was about two skiers who that won the Olympic gold and silver, and then the world champs the following year. And when you look at the people that are involved in your squad that we spoke about at the start, and Lo sharing about the focus on how controlling what I can control, but also buying into the vision of the team. And the vision that team had was all about, okay, how could we win? The bigger vision in themselves was to win. How could we win more medals, gold medals, silver medals for our country? And they bought into that, and they didn't waver away from that, and they both benefited from it in different ways, but also both had to sacrifice things around. Can you imagine giving away the Olympic gold medal when all you need to do is not tell them a little bit of information, and you wouldn't be necessarily not lying, but you just be holding back, and that's going to hurt the trust. And so our whole environment's about trying to enhance the trust we have for that group, and that comes from getting to know each other, creating those vulnerable situations, lines in the sands, tools to keep each other accountable, and as we shared at the start, making sure the vision and the values are there to complement and drive that and maximise how tight we are as a unit. So I hope it's been insightful. Is there any questions that people have that we haven't answered already? But I hope it's been insightful so far to our environment and what's led to us growing as people ultimately.
So one question we had was, is there a struggle with the losses along the way? And how do you motivate when there's so many Goliaths in rugby so far? One thing for us on the losses, I think can tie back to the cohesion thing is ties back to the checkpoint. So those losses were just a great checkpoint for us to know, oh, things need to change. So, but again, it's the game of seven. So many things happen. Losses are going to happen. But like Brownie said, we do checkpoints all the time. And then after our Sydney tournament, we had a checkpoint right there just to figure out what our values were, what we need to work on. So, I mean, losses can be a great learning opportunity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times it's remembering why we're here, like why individually, why am I here? And so I don't know, every time something doesn't go the way that you wanted to, you stick to those driving factors in that direction that you've committed to, and that'll take you through it, and then you just keep going.
And this is why it's key that you have this foundation built with the clear vision and the values that we live by, and then the playing structures or the playing what's it called, strategies fall underneath that, and suddenly you've got a pretty solid guide to look back at and recognise those checkpoint moments. What's really hurting us here? Is it our cohesion? Is it our values? Or is it an element of play that maybe we just haven't shown as much respect to? Or we've just been outdone here by an opposition that they've been a little bit cleverer than us in this situation. But having that foundation and that guide makes it a lot easier to remove the emotion and critically reflect.
One question was, how do we encourage this growth and teach these values to young people or people who need help with developing these skills?
Well, we all need to develop, and it's always a learning it's a growing process. So it's, again, most people that you work with will know where they fall short at times, and if you create the opportunity for them to share and make them feel empowered and valued, generally a lot of the stuff that you already notice they'll come up with. And that means that them being accountable to that and owning what they've shared is going to be so much more powerful. Whether they're 5-6 years old or whether they're 45-year-old coaches, as everybody tells me, but I'm only actually 35. Go one more, Lo.
How big a disruption has the Olympics being postponed been on you individually and on the squad's planning? What have you done to mitigate the disruption? I think for this what's happening is affecting everyone. It's affecting every team. For us, it just means, again, I think going back to the checkpoint idea is like now we're like, oh, okay, here we have to stop and we have to kind of plan everything over again. But in regards to cohesion and culture, it hasn't changed. It just means we have another year of getting better at our values and like really listening to them. And during this time is a good time while we're in quarantine of remembering our values and trying to live those out. To mitigate the disruption, we've been connecting on Zoom calls and still connecting in some way so that we're still a team.
One of the big things that we refer to is we want to be known as an adaptable group. We want to be a very fast, powerful unit out there on the pitch, but that we're adaptable. We solve problems the whole time, and if any problems come up, etc., then we find those solutions. We're always optimistic and looking for the opportunity, and so we've had to adapt and recognise how can we maximise this time, what's needed, with regards to disconnecting / being connected / doing prioritising elements that we know are critical for us, whether it's, okay, now we've got more time to do this, which we maybe wouldn't have prioritised previously, or no, now we have to really invest in this because it's not naturally going to happen as being key.
And I think we all understand that the whole world is facing like this really unique challenge. And so one of our mantras as a team is next task, right? So like the Olympics got pushed back a year. Goals are still the same, but the timeline's a little bit different. But how are we going to most productively use all this time that we've been given? Like it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. But like focusing on what we can do right now instead of thinking too far ahead into the future.
I think that's the coolest thing. The emotions that everyone involved has experienced is slightly different, and it chops and changes probably day to day, especially over those first couple of weeks. But that's absolutely okay, and that's absolutely normal. But again, our values and the culture that we've developed hopefully give us the best chance to be successful about coming back to that next task and focusing on what we can control. And finding the positive and the opportunities that we still do have, and if we look at what we want to achieve, which is inspire and unify a nation, we have an opportunity to be an example, at least for those people that are closest to us. All right, team. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. Don't hesitate to reach out. If you've got additional questions, my email is cbrown@usa.rugby. The girls are all over social media. They've got big platforms there and always doing great things to inspire the community. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure to share some insight into what we've been doing for the last little while. Cheers, ladies.